So good evening, everyone. My name's Kelly Suzanne Salisbury, and it is my distinct honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, the 56th Mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. Mayor Lightfoot's pathway to public service, as with many of you seated in the forum today, has been shaped by a commitment to social justice and equity. Since her historic election last year, she has made equity and inclusion a top priority for her administration, working tirelessly to create opportunity for every Chicagoan, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, economic status, or neighborhood. Mayor Lightfoot came to City Hall following a career as a manager, advocate, and reform expert with extensive experience working at the city and federal level to make government more accountable and accessible. Before taking office, she served as a senior equity partner in the Litigation and Conflict Resolution Group at Mayor Brown, LLP. While at Mayor Brown, Mayor Lightfoot took on two critical tasks for the city of Chicago, chairing the Police Accountability Task Force and serving as president of the Chicago Police Board. Mayor Lightfoot held other key positions in city government as the interim first deputy of the Chicago Department of Procurement Services and chief of staff and general counsel of the Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications. Earning her JD from the University of Chicago Law School, Mayor Lightfoot also served as Assistant United States Attorney in the Northern District of Illinois Criminal Division, managing large-scale investigations involving criminal drug conspiracies, political corruption, and bankruptcy fraud. An element of Lightfoot's career that resonates with me, and I suspect with many students and practitioners, is her overarching drive to make this city better. In her mayoral inauguration speech last May, Mayor Lightfoot said, quote, "The challenges we face today did not arise overnight, and they will not be solved overnight, and they certainly won't be solved by one mayor acting alone." I encourage you to keep this in mind. Change takes time, because it is not easy. And that premise is at the heart of the U Chicago approach. Here, we learn through inquiry. And at Harris, we pride ourselves in asking the tough questions and then clearly examining the data to drive real, measurable social impact. Another part of Mayor Lightfoot's inauguration speech that I connected with public policy was in her reinterpretation of the 4 stars of the Chicago flag. For those who may be new to Chicago, the Chi, each of the 4 stars represent key events in our city's history. For the first star, Mayor Lightfoot suggested we think about safety as a priority in our city and in our communities. As future policymakers, we have the ability to affect change and be potential voices for those who feel powerless. We must never lose sight of the fact that behind every data point is a person. To confront an issue as seemingly intractable as gun violence, for example, requires both harnessing the power of data and partnerships to understand, test, and scale the most promising solutions. As you may have heard from Professor Jens Ludwig earlier today, as students at Harris, you can be involved in the innovative work of our research centers like the University of Chicago Crime Lab, which partners with city government, philanthropy, and local NGOs to enhance public safety. Mayor Lightfoot posited the second guiding star as education, a policy issue that I know motivates many of you in the room today, whether you've served in TFA, Teach for America, or taught in other countries. In her address, Mayor Lightfoot challenged us all, and I quote, to prepare students for meaningful work, civic engagement, and lifelong learning, which underscores the importance of thinking holistically about policy issues, as you will find at Harris. The third star is re-envisioned as stability. As policymakers, we look at a situation holistically while also considering the long-term benefits and possible repercussions, and not merely the short-term gains. As change makers, we should strive to leave a legacy of lasting positive impact. This dovetails nicely into Mayor Lightfoot's final stars revision: integrity. We, everyone here, have chosen this path to pursue policy at the University of Chicago, one of the world's most renowned academic research institutions, because we recognized something was wrong. You saw something broken. You experienced something unfair, and you want to seek a resolution. And you chose to step forward. And now here you are on your path to doing exactly that. In the closing of her inauguration speech, Mayor Lightfoot said, quote, "Each of us needs to ask, what can I do? What contributions can I make? Ask yourself, are you ready to serve in some way?" Close quote. Well, I am excited to see what each of you future policymakers will do. And I am equally excited and proud to introduce Lori Lightfoot, our Mayor of Chicago.
Wow, this is quite an assemblage of folks. Thank you very much for that incredibly kind and generous introduction. And thank you all for being here. It's a thrill to be back on the campus, particularly when I don't have to take any tests. And I'm honored to be here as part of Black History Month. Some of you may know that this past Wednesday I joined the City Council in recognizing Nicole Hannah-Jones, a writer and historian who is best known for her role in the New York Times 1619 project. But Nicole's entire body of work, which goes back really many years, stands as an exploration of the dimensions of slavery's 400-year legacy on who we are as a nation. It's a legacy that's older than the nation itself, the arc of which has been more slave than free, and one where the full rights of citizenship have been enjoyed for only the last 50 of those years, a mere fraction of that time. Those 400 years have also come to define the very fiber of our nation, touching every aspect of who we are as a people, our economy, our culture, and our society. It's also what distinguishes us from the rest of the world. Our own city of Chicago embodies that legacy in all its forms, in both our capacity to overcome it and in how we continue to struggle under its weight of fundamental inequity and injustice. It's that 400-year history we are confronting when we explore our challenges of income and housing inequality and segregation, our challenges of concentrated violence, the abject poverty that crushes so many in our communities, the precarious finances for our working families, the lack of good-paying jobs, and the systemic disinvestment we see in neighborhoods like Austin and North Lawndale, compared to the seemingly limitless flow of capital in neighborhoods like Lakeview and the Gold Coast. That is where we find ourselves today, in 2020, in year 401. As we honor Black History Month today, I'd like for us to focus our time on the next steps in our 4-century history on this continent. And how will we go about writing that history in year 401 and beyond? Yesterday, we had our first ever, but not last, Poverty Summit in Chicago. We called it Steps Towards Ending Poverty. Since I first announced my run for mayor, I've visited every neighborhood in this city, some multiple times, seen everything that makes Chicago strong. But I've also seen everything that we've failed to confront for generations. Simply put, poverty. Poverty is killing us, literally and figuratively killing us. Not just the souls of the people that are locked in its seeming unrelenting grip. Those poor souls are suffering, to be sure, but so are we, the rest of us. There are no shortage of statistics on poverty in Chicago. Things like 1 in 5 of our residents live below the federal poverty line. 1 in 4 Chicagoans have to spend over half of their incomes on housing. 3 out of every 4 of our kids in CPS depend on the schools to eat. And the list goes on and on and on. But at its core, what poverty is the absence of. The absence of resources, of jobs, of stable housing, the elements needed for people and communities to lead healthy and fulfilled lives. And with that, the sense of being less valuable, less worthy of attention or help. In other words, the absence of the kinds of things that you and I take for granted every day because we can access these things in abundance. The question of how did we get here is answered through history. And there is history to that, lots of it. From 1619 to 1865, from 1919 to 1965, right on through today. Across this country, cities and towns just like ours that are reckoning with their own versions of those histories. You see it in many of the southern cities wrestling with the relics of that legacy in the form of flags, statues, and holidays of the failed Confederacy. Here in the North, those legacies take other forms. In the boundaries of our neighborhoods, the demographics of our schools, in the chasm of inequality that have marked our city for generation after generation after generation. After we move forward with our history in the year of 401, it's those relics we must confront and tear down. But to do that, we have to be honest with ourselves. For all of the external factors at play, the hard truth that we must confront is the fact that we, our city and our city government, are responsible. Our fingerprints are all over this legacy of inequality. When it comes to moving forward as a city, we have to confront the fact that we as a city built these relics by using government as a tool to create and enforce, sometimes brutally, viciously, race-based discrimination that killed, that crushed, and systematically reduced the lives of millions over generations. We as a city did this by engineering an entire infrastructure perfected over time to savagely enforce for centuries an ethos that Black, as well as brown, Asian, and indigenous lives did not matter, period. Our past is very much our present. And if I'm making you uncomfortable, it's intentionally so. These are uncomfortable things. These are issues that we must confront in order to be able to move forward. It's a reckoning that is long overdue in our city. As we honor Black History Month here in Chicago and enter this new century of Blacks on this continent, my central mission is this: tearing down our relics of that legacy by ending poverty in a generation as we know it in this city. Government and we the people created this monstrous problem. And we the people must, but importantly, we can solve it. I will no longer write off tens of thousands of our residents who live in poverty, who struggle from paycheck to paycheck, and whose daily existence is a struggle for food, for clothing, for shelter, and for the dignity that we all need to make this life worth living. If we are fully to honor our history, then we must grow our economy in a way that truly values everyone. that truly understands that we cannot be great as a city when our neighbors are starving and suffering. Their pain is real. And we must conquer this in our time, in our generation, and we have to start now. This is a great city. There's no denying that. And we have a wealth of resources. And there is no morally acceptable reason we cannot devote our time, our talent, our energies towards ending poverty in our city. Now, I'm clear-eyed about the fact that it's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, and there will be skepticism. There will be a lot of tough days when we feel like we're not making progress. But our challenge ahead is also our great opportunity. As we look over the next 400 years, and as a mother of a young daughter, we have a responsibility to ask ourselves, what future do we want to create? What history do we want to shape? Our task today is for today, but also for the grace and guidance of untold generations to come. Our time to do the necessary hard work is now. Our moment is now. We have an opportunity in this city to capitalize on the great talent, the great wealth, but also the feeling of hope that does exist, maybe at the highest level that we've seen in a long time. We have an opportunity to capitalize on all those things and move forward together as a city, neighbor to neighbor, to focus on our common interest, the things that unite us and not the things that divide us. I say all the time that you look at what happens in Washington, D.C., the toxicity of the public debate. It's easy to lose hope and despair. But the thing that sets us apart in a city like Chicago is that we don't have to follow that lead. We can chart our own course, and we already are. But what we need to do is galvanize those efforts that are going on in neighborhoods all over this city and say, we stand united as a city, that we are going to bring all of our people together. We are going to move forward in an entirely different way. We are going to be neighbors to each other, people we may not even know, may not ever meet. But we care about the legacy that we create for each other together, and that we're going to move forward in a different way. And we are going to look out for people who are most in need, however we do it. We don't even need to have a grand plan. We just need to do something week by week, month by month, together as a city. So one of the things I will ask you is to think about, each of you, what more you can do, what more you can ask of yourself. Some of you are doing the Lord's work in neighborhoods all over the city. Some of you are donating your time, your money, other resources. And that's something that's important. But ask yourself, how can I dig down just a little bit deeper to make sure that I'm doing what I can to create a legacy for myself of doing good for those most in need? If we do that, each of us, ask that poignant question, and then we take that list that we generate and we act and we start checking it off, we will be using the power that we all possess, the privilege that we have of being in a different place, having privilege, using that power to do good, to make a difference in the quality of people's lives. Start with people in your network. Start with people that you see on the streets in Hyde Park to the south here. When I was on this campus, probably longer than many of you are even old, 61st Street had a barbed wire fence. We have to think about how we tear down those kind of fences in our relationships and in the work that we're doing, and how we build something different, a legacy of good, a legacy of work I'm a person of faith, and I believe in the teachings of James chapter 2, which says, faith without works is dead. Now, we're not all people of faith, but if you're a person of good heart, if you care about your neighbor, and you want to make a difference in this world, join with me and join with the thousands and tens of thousands of people all over this city who are uniting to make a difference for ourselves, for our families, for our neighbors. That's real power. We can do that in a lot of different ways, but whatever form it takes, I hope I pricked your consciousness today and encourage you to do something different, meaningful, impactful. Can be at any scale, but just do act. Thank you very much.
So here's a question. Mayor Lightfoot, I applaud your Invest Southwest efforts. What efforts are being implemented to address the city's deep-rooted struggle with segregation?
Great question. So let me just talk a little bit about Invest Southwest for those of you who don't know. So we are engaged in a lot of different efforts, all centered around revitalizing neighborhoods, in particular on the south and the west sides of Chicago, for reasons that hopefully are obvious, which is we have too many neighborhoods where people are living in really deplorable conditions, and a lot of it focuses around poverty, lack of economic opportunity. So Invest Southwest is a beginning initiative where we've taken 10 commercial corridors on the south and the west side, and we are working with members of the community to co-curate what economic development looks like in their neighborhoods. So it's not one size fits all. And each of these neighborhoods has different strengths and different opportunities. And we are engaging with members of the community. We held 4 different town halls starting last fall and ending earlier in January, with the idea that we would engage the community and talk to them about what they wanted. We've assembled $750 million of city dollars to invest in this initiative. And we are inviting private capital as well. When we announced the initiative back in October, we're joined by BMO Harris, who committed $10 million to the Austin neighborhood, which is one of the 10 communities. We've since received another $10 million from Starbucks. Fifth Third Bank announced just a few weeks ago $20 million that they're going to be investing through neighborhood opportunity funds that line up with our 10 community corridors, and other efforts are underway. But the idea is, what does it take to build healthy, supportive neighborhoods? It's not just about retail space, but it's open spaces, places where intergenerational gathering can come, affordability. And what we're trying to do is strengthen these neighborhoods, provide the resources that are necessary to actually transform the neighborhoods. A lot of these neighborhoods already had community plans, quality of life plans, but what they lacked is the capital to actually make them become real. So that's where we come in and help facilitate further economic growth. Why we think this is important and why I'm talking about this in response to your question is, when we give people economic mobility, when we provide good paying jobs, quality of life, those are the kind of neighborhoods where people want to live and will help us break down the segregation that has really been the hallmark of Chicago for way, way too long. So stay tuned, but I'm excited about these opportunities.
Excellent. Another question. How does public housing, specifically the Chicago Housing Authority, fit into your overall plan to confront poverty in the city?
Well, I think the CHA has to be an integral part of the table. So in the sub-cabinet that we formed to really make sure that we continue and drill down deep on the anti-poverty work, the CHA, of course, is at the table. And as any of you who know anything about public housing, people in those communities often feel trapped. And when I talk about public housing in Chicago, my mind immediately goes to Altgeld Gardens, which is on the far south side of the city. And it is completely and utterly isolated. One elementary school, no high school, no grocery stores, no commerce. I mean, the people in that neighborhood are completely and utterly bereft of resources. So the CHA is an important partner in the work, and we've got to do more to strengthen the supports of people that are living in public housing. And also, I think we've got to expand our vision of what tools the CHA has itself to expand housing opportunities. It can't and it need not maintain the status quo. And by that I mean just tending to the properties that already exist, occasionally distributing housing vouchers. We have to have a bolder vision for the CHA, and we will.
Okay. Next question. What do you believe is the greatest challenge facing the next generation of policymakers and people in general?
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
I think there is not one big challenge. I think there are multiple challenges. The status quo is really powerful. And the status quo in our thinking about how to address challenges in the public sector, I think, is really, really undercutting a lot of important work. You know, I've had people say to me since we publicly announced the work that we're going to be doing around poverty, it's like, Mayor, that's too big. You can't do that. How do you actually move the needle? And how are you going to judge yourself? And aren't you putting yourself at political risk? If we don't take bold action and take risk and make ourselves feel uncomfortable and step out of the path that has been walked for generations, for decades, and say, maybe we need to do something differently because we're getting the same results and we're not moving the needle. So the status quo and that thinking that so encapsulates a lot of public policy, I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face in really moving forward.
And speaking of multiple challenges, you mentioned there isn't just one challenge, there are multiple. There's another question here that says, Mayor Lightfoot, there are many issues that Chicago is facing. How do you view the development of Chicago's workforce for disadvantaged populations within the context of these issues?
It's a critical component of it. You know, I mentioned before, why are people trapped in poverty? In part because they're not exposed to opportunities that can lift them up. They're not exposed to and have a pipeline into good paying jobs that can lead them to a different life. I had this epiphany is probably too strong, but I had this moment of clarity earlier this year when I was sitting on a stage at a graduation for the Chicago Fire Department. And as I watched the graduate, walk across the stage, it occurred to me that each of those people who were graduating were walking into a middle-class life. And that there are many things that we can do better, more effectively, to make sure that those opportunities in the pipeline leading to the middle class are reimagined and reinvigorated, and we have to do that in every neighborhood. Part of the challenge that we're seeing in the city, the exodus of population, the life expectancy gaps, the violence, a lot of that stems around the absence of a legitimate economy that can support the aspirations of people in those neighborhoods. And workforce development, as we kind of euphemistically call it, is central to a lot of those challenges. But just as it's central to the challenges, it's got to be central to the solutions.
And this one, since we are at Harris, is it says, what role do you see the Harris School and its students playing in efforts to reform and improve the city?
Well, I think because of the power of the work that's done here, because of the power that each of you possess and the intellectual ability and curiosity, there's many things that we could partner with you on that you could help us with. And taking on, some of these pilot programs that really test the boundaries of what we know, what we can do. There are many things I think that we could do together. And we are doing that with other colleges and universities across the city on a range of public policy issues. Northwestern's involved, DePaul's involved, UIC is involved. We would love to get you directly involved in helping us support the work by holding us accountable, using the data that's generated by a lot of our initiatives to make sure that we are headed in the right direction, or that if we need to make some tweaks along the way. So there's plenty of things that you all could do, and love to sit down and have that conversation.
These are such good questions, my gosh. Okay, so another responder. How will you ensure that revitalization efforts benefit the people already living in those neighborhoods rather than putting them at risk of displacement as a result of gentrification?
Well, I think that's a real and valid question for neighborhoods all over the city, and particularly your neighborhood to the east of here in Woodlawn. That is a conversation that we've been having with Woodlawn residents in the wake of the standing up of the Obama Presidential Center. I live in Logan Square on the north side. We're kind of ground zero for what happens when you're not intentional about gentrification and economic transformation. We've lost in Logan Square a significant amount of our, I'll call it indigenous population, families from the Latinx community that have lived in that neighborhood for decades because we just let it happen without thinking about what the implications were. Now, having lived through that, and we're continuing to live through the consequences of the failure to plan, we want to make sure that we're much more intentional in every other neighborhood that's going through a period of transformation. And Woodlawn, for us, is really ground zero for that work.
Oh, last question. Okay, so since this is the last question, wow, I think this is a lovely one. It says, I'm interested in running for office someday. Mayor Lightfoot, what prepared you and what inspired you to run for office?
Well, each of these gray hairs is the experience and preparation. Look, I just think you have to have life experience. That doesn't mean you have to be as old as I am to run for the first time. I was, 56 when I launched my campaign for mayor. It was the first elective office that I ever ran for. But I do think you need to be clear about why you want to serve. It can't be about you. It's got to be about public service. It's got to be about putting people first and making sure that you have engaged in a process, whatever form that takes, to really understand the constituency that you aspire to lead. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of late nights being out, being present, and listening to people, and never losing sight of the fact that you serve a people, not yourself. And you have to have a seriousness of purpose about that, and you have to build a vision for where you want to lead that is arm in arm with the people that you want to serve. And I think if you think about and approach things from that perspective, you're going to ultimately be successful.
Well, I can say that I am really glad that you are our mayor. I know I was incredibly excited about your candidacy and I was thrilled and also proud, very proud of you. So thank you so much for your service and genuine commitment to the city, as well as your time with us tonight. And let's please join me in giving Mayor Lori Lightfoot a round of applause.